So, foundational practice number two is a compelling vision. So, the common financial advice is that you should save because, well, it's just the right thing to do, right? You have an emergency fund. That means that you don't have to go into credit card debt when a lump sum payment comes up, car breaks down, something like that. Or, saving for retirement. You should save for retirement because then that means that you're going to have a comfortable living in retirement once you no longer have any income. All of that is fine. All of that is true. The problem is that your brain doesn't care about any of that, right? Emergencies are something we wish never happened. Retirement seems so far away. Your brain really can't identify with it. It reminds me of something that I read a few years ago. I wish I could find it for you. If I find it, I'll link it in the comments. But it was this study that was done by scientists, and what they did is they would hook up people to these MRI machines and observe patterns in their brain. And and as they were hooked up to these MRI machines, they would show people a series of pictures, and they would see how their brain lit up, what areas of the brain lit up. So it seems from the report that I read that different areas of your brain light up when you see people that you recognize versus when you see people that you don't recognize. And so they show them a series of pictures, right? Who's this? Oh, that's my brother. Oh, who's this? Oh, that's my spouse. Oh, who's this? This person's a stranger, right? One part of the brain lights up when you see somebody you recognize. A different part of the brain lights up when you see someone that you don't recognize. And so they showed them these pictures, and the different parts of the brain would light on and off. And then they showed them this last picture. And in this last picture was a digitally aged version of themselves, maybe 25, 30 years older. What part of the brain do you think lit up when they saw these digitally aged versions of themselves? That's right, stranger category. Turns out, for whatever reason, our brains cannot identify our older versions of us, significantly older versions of us, as us. Now, this is particularly a difficult problem for future you because future you is relying on present day you to set them up for success. But present day you does not identify with future you as a part of them. So your brain doesn't see future you as you, so current day you cannot sacrifice for future day you because we don't really see that as us. That's a weird problem, but it is a problem that is fairly easy to get around if you know how. The way that you get around this problem of not being able to sacrifice for the future is that you don't. Right? You only focus on the things that are most important to you at this moment. Your brain cannot identify with a version of you that is 30 years older than you are currently. But your brain can identify with you today and what you want today. Your brain can also identify with versions of you that are very close to you in age, i.e., these are versions of you that are the version of you that is 2 days from now, the version of you that is a week from now, a version of you that is a month from now, and a version of you that is a year from now. Not 20 years. It's too abstract for the human brain, so it turns out. Right? So let me paint a metaphor for you. So let's pretend like you're one of those paper origami things, right? Where you have the people, they have the cutout, and then they have the people, and when you spread open like this, you have all the people kind of locking arms like that. The metaphor is that pretend that you are one of the people in that paper chain, and you are connected at the arms with on one side you're connected to the younger version of you, and on the right hand side you're connected to the older version of you. So for example, I'm 30 as of right now, so I'm connected at one arm to the 29-year-old version of me, and I'm connected at the other arm to the 31-year-old version of me, right? I know what 30-year-old me wants most, so I'm going to pursue that. And that thing is very close to the thing that 29-year-old me also wanted to pursue. It's also very close to what the 31-year-old version of me also wanted to pursue. We all have a lot in common because we're so close together, right? I can identify with them. They can identify with me. And so 29-year-old me can work to 30-year-old me's goal. And I can work to 31-year-old's me goal, 31-year-old's me's goal. But I can't work towards 60-year-old me's goal, right? That's like if I'm in a chain of people like this and I look down, I can't see him, right? He's 30 people down. I can't see him. I don't know what he wants. He probably wants something completely different from life than what I want now. So it doesn't make sense for me to try to plan for his future. I can plan for my own future, and I can plan for 31-year-old me's future. I can give him something to start with so that he can plan for 32-year-old me's future, and so on and so on and so forth. And if every person in that chain successfully achieves whatever goal they set out to do that year, then the 60-year-old version of me, all the way at the end, is going to have the resources that he needs to create whatever type of life he wants. And I think that that's just a better way of pursuing it, and it works with what we know about how the human brain works, is that we can only truly pursue things that we actually want to do. And you actually want to do the things that are most important to you now, not the things that are abstracted 20 or 30 years down the line. This is a better approach to pursuing long-term goals that's a lot easier for the human brain to handle, and it produces the same outcomes, which is the important part. So how would you start to pursue this idea of going about it in this way, right? I talked about, well, what does present you want? What do you actually want, right? So that's my question to you, is like, what do you want? Another way to ask that question is, if life could be what you wanted it to be, what would it look like, right? And so I gave this some thought about what the compelling vision might look like, how to assist people in finding what their compelling vision is. And so I came up with some parameters that all compelling visions have, and hopefully this helps you find what your compelling vision is that you should pursue on a daily basis right now towards your long-term financial goals, whatever that is. So the first parameter of a compelling vision is that it has to be meaningful. What does something mean when it's meaningful, right? It means that it has to move the needle. It has to be something that you can measure as progress. In other words, imagine that once you've, in some alternative universe, when you've actually accomplished this thing, whatever it is, that you will be able to look back at all of the sacrifices that you made over that time period, and you'll still be able to say that despite the fact that I had to sacrifice so much in order to accomplish this goal, that it was still worth doing. If a goal is meaningful, then it will be emotionally compelling. And if it's emotionally compelling, then you're more likely to stick with it. You'll actually feel like you are moving in the proper direction. Okay, so the second parameter of a compelling vision is that it has to be within the realm of realism. So what does that mean? It means, simply put, that the goal can neither be too difficult or too easy. If the goal is too easy, then it cannot be meaningful, because you already know that you can do it, and it will not move the needle if it's easy. If the goal is too difficult, then you're going to become overwhelmed by the thought of doing it, and then you won't do anything. So the goal has to be appropriately difficult. So let me give you an example. So let's say your goal is to save $100 a month, right? And now that would be a worthwhile goal, and it would be something that is appropriately difficult if, let's say, you were cash flow negative, right? You had credit card debt, you didn't have any extra left over at the end of the month. Then getting to $100 a month is all of a sudden a compelling vision, because now it gives you something meaningful to work towards that is also within the realm of possibility. But if you were already saving more than $100 a month, if some of the time, then the goal of saving $100 a month is not compelling. So then that would not be a good goal for someone who for which that goal would be too easy. Now let's look at the other side of that. Let's say you're able to save $100 a month, and you want to be as rich as Jeff Bezos, who I think is worth over $200 billion as of the making of this video, right? The gap between saving $100 a month and being worth $200 billion a month is just so vast that you wouldn't even know what action you'd have to take in order to start to pursue that goal. And so you would just get overwhelmed by the thought of trying to do it, and you just wouldn't do anything, right? Even Jeff Bezos didn't know he'd be Jeff Bezos. I don't care what anybody says, right? The 1995 version of Jeff Bezos had no idea that he'd reach the level of financial success that he has now. You can't plan for that because the gap between 1995 Jeff Bezos and 2024 Jeff Bezos is so wide, you just couldn't do it. All you can do is set a vision before you that is achievable, that is approachable, and if it's achievable and approachable, then the steps to pursue it will be clear, and it'll be interesting, exciting, and compelling. If the goal is appropriately difficult, it means that you will be forced to learn and grow as a result in order to pursue this goal, right? There's an old saying that our goals, they create demands of us, right? So if you have a goal that is slightly outside of the realm of what you think is actually achievable, then you will have to grow as a person in order to become good enough to achieve whatever that goal is. And so because you have to grow in order to achieve that goal, it becomes emotionally compelling, because if you have to grow in order to pursue it, then that opens up the opportunities for you. Because if you grow as a person, now all of a sudden there's more opportunity to pursue, right? Now all of a sudden all those doors are now open to you, so that's an exciting thing to pursue. And so that is why the goal has to be not too easy and not too difficult. Parameter 3 for compelling vision is clarity, right? Whenever I ask people this question, well, what do you want? They'll say, well, I just want to be good, or I just want to have enough, or I just want to be comfortable. You love those. And I ask this question, well, what does that mean, right? Is it a particular savings goal, a certain amount of money in the bank? Is it an income goal? Be specific about what it is that you're trying to accomplish, because the clearer the goal, the clearer the pursuit of that goal will be, because it'll be clear what has to happen next in order to move towards it. Also, whenever you make a goal that is outside of your comfort zone, that is just outside of what you think is possible, what will naturally happen is that you will want to give up. But the clearer your goal is, if you can clearly manifest your goal in your mind, then you will be able to experience the emotions that you would experience when the goal is accomplished, right? Because if you can see it in your mind, then you will be able to experience it today, right? And so the clearer the goal is, the easier it is to do that. And when you eventually want to give up, which is just a natural occurrence, you won't give up because you can see that goal as clearly as you can see your own reflection in the mirror. If you get to that point of clarity and specificity, then you'll still be able to pursue even when things get difficult. The fourth parameter for a compelling vision is timeliness. So what do I mean by timeliness? Timeliness means that you have to put a date on it. There's an old expression that a goal without a plan is just wishful thinking, right? And that's true. When you put a timeline on it, you make it real and you create a sense of urgency. And like I had mentioned before, when you put real parameters to a goal, it makes demands of you. It tells you what needs to happen in order to pursue that goal in a timely fashion. And plus, once you actually have a date for what you want to do and you're clear about what you want to accomplish, then you can run the numbers. So let's say, for example, you wanted to save $1,000, right? And you can save $100 a month. Well, then you know that that's going to take 10 months, right? Or let's say you wanted to buy a home that was $500,000, and so you assume you're gonna have to put 20% down. It's $100,000, and let's say you could save $500 a month. So if you could save $500 a month, how long would it take you to save $100,000? It would take you approximately 200 months, which is about 17 years. So you could say, well, that's completely out of the water. It takes too long. It's not gonna work. But because you ran the numbers, you can say, okay, well, that's not gonna work. 17 years not doing that. Or $500 a month, can't do that. Maybe I can get an FHA loan instead, or maybe I can do PMI, right, private mortgage insurance, and I can put less than 20% down, right? But you never would have known that you would have had to pivot in these ways to kind of pursue your goal of buying a $500,000 home if you hadn't run the numbers, right? And so that's kind of the value of running the numbers, is that it tells you whether or not you're going to have to make a change to pursue your goals. As far as the timeline for making goals, it really just depends on the goal. I think in the beginning, if you're new to this idea of making a compelling vision, you shouldn't make goals that go out further than a year, right? So I have my finances tracked on a daily basis. Then I look at the reports on a monthly basis, and then I make goals for a yearly basis, and then I look every month to see how I'm stacking up with the pursuit of those goals. And that seems to work very well for me, so I would kind of recommend that. The TLDR for compelling vision. I understand that people really don't do anything that they actually don't want to do. So the way you get around that is to actually make it something that you want to do. And the way you do that is to attach that action to some outcome you care about today. Then you break the large goal into manageable pieces and spread it across time. Because saving is a form of sacrifice and your brain needs a way to justify that sacrifice, making a sacrifice for anything without a compelling vision of the future is just meaningless suffering. It's meaningless because you don't know why you're doing it. And it's suffering because you value what you're losing more than what you're gaining by taking that action. So if you don't want to suffer while saving money, you have to change your value proposition. You have to make saving a pleasurable experience and make spending the painful experience. And the way you do that is by assigning value to your act of saving beyond the value of what you would have spent the money on. If you are successful in doing this, saving will become the default action instead of spending, and you'll be able to save without a budget.